after this. I hope you're finding them useful. I know that the last couple of times we've gotten some really great feedback from all of the chefs and chef owners on how we can improve this tool to make it more customizable for you. Less thinking on the conversion fronts, and a few more updates that Matthew will walk us through. I just want to let everybody know, thank you. We really, really do appreciate all of your feedback. It's making this tool so much better for everybody. So we ask you to continue to give feedback and crowdsource questions amongst yourselves. That's how we build this community to make sure we're all successful with our financials. That being said, the last session we had a really good interaction from a lot of chefs regarding the conversion and some troubles they were having trying to do the conversions themselves. Matthew spent a lot of time, and he's going to walk you through it shortly, on the conversions to make it really easy for you so you don't feel intimidated by it or the Excel is not too difficult. It'll do the calculation for you. But we also had a great suggestion from a chef last time to maybe see in real time the practicality of the tool by inputting a recipe in real time. So we think that's going to be really helpful for you today. I know we told everyone to halt on using the tools until the conversion was ready. So once you see it today, and again, we've taped this session, hopefully this will be helpful for you going forward. And then the last two sessions in November and December could be just you coming and bringing additional questions, or if you're stuck on anything. We just want to have an open door for you to make sure that you feel comfortable with the tool. That being said, I'm going to hand it over. Thank you again, Matthew, so much for all of your thoughtfulness on this tool and making our chefs and our chef owners' lives easier as they navigate a very busy industry. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Matthew.
Yeah, thank you, Anushka. Thank you, Anna. So hi, everyone. My name is Matthew. I'm here on behalf of my team from the University of Michigan. So we partnered with Anushka and Anna to bring AppCaught and the activity-based costing training to all of you. We're so happy that we're getting feedback. It's a great sign when we get feedback. It just wants us to try and make sure that this tool is actually really useful. So to everything that Anushka said, we've tried to make changes to the tool to account for all the feedback we've received. No tool is perfect. If, as you continue using the tool, if you have any additional feedback that you would like to share, please do share that feedback. We're open. We're looking for that feedback. We're looking to see how we can make this as useful for you as we can. Right?
So really quick before you start, yes. Sorry. Anna, can you just confirm that what's on the website right now, is that still the old tool or is that the updated tool? If you can just, so that there's no confusion.
Yes, so that has the old tool, but the request will be in and that will be updated. And I will be attaching it, the updated tool, in the follow-up email from this session.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to walk you all through the tool and the changes that we've made. Now, for the most part, I haven't touched any of the other buckets, like any of the other groupings over here. So equipment, activities, and overhead. So the main focus for this session is going to be on this first grouping over here, food costs. Now, you will see that it's set to 0 at this point. That's intentional because I did clear out all the values over here so that, like Anushka said, we can walk through entering a recipe to see how this would play out, right? Now, the recipe that we will be going through is something that I got from Anna and Anushka. It is this one, Quail on Toast by Ed Zemensky. It's a particularly fascinating recipe. I mean, the recipe on its own is amazing. I haven't tried making this myself yet. It is one of my action items to do after this call. But something that stood out with this recipe is the sheer number of ingredients that go into compiling this particular recipe, right? So we'll go through the steps over here. I like this because of the number of ingredients. Like I mentioned earlier, we have expanded this particular table to account for more ingredients. Now, the table's been expanded to account for 30 ingredients at a time. If you find that this is not sufficient, please do let us know. This can always be expanded to take in additional ingredients, depending on what your recipes require. Because the food inventory tab does have space to account for at least 1,000 ingredients in its current form. So there is space to expand on this food list. Let me quickly walk you through the changes we've made on the food inventory tab before we start actually playing around with entering the ingredients for that recipe. So very quickly, this is the food inventory tab that the tool has had in the previous sessions as well. Changes that have been made. It starts with the first column over here. The number of groupings have been expanded. So you will see additional groupings in this list over here to account for things like baking, pantry items. So this is typically your dry goods like your dry pastas, herbs and spices, spirits and sauces. This recipe is going to call for the use of sherry vinegar, for example, and red wine. So there is a grouping now to account for those ingredients as well. We've also fixed the error that had shown up in the last session with oils. So there was a slight configuration error. So that has also been fixed now. So you will be able to use oils and fats as a part of the overall calculation. Keeping all of the other columns the same. So like all of this is the same. Everything in yellow is where user input is required. So this is where you would have to add in values for these particular columns. Columns in white, as a refresher, is where there are formulas that drive the values that are displayed in those columns. So no action required from you in those columns that have white backgrounds. Now, where we've made changes is you will see here. So starting with column F, this is where we've started with the conversions. Earlier, you would just enter the units exactly as they were. Now what we've done is we've got this list of units over here. This is typically what we hope is how you would purchase these ingredients in bulk from your suppliers. So you have this column where you can specify what those ingredients are. Then when you come over to these columns here, this is where I want to draw special attention, columns H through M. Column H is where you could specify how much of a particular ingredient you use as a part of your recipes. This is a great place to either put in a default value. So for example, if your recipes always ask for 500 grams of butter or like half a kg of butter. I know it seems like a lot, but just bear with me as a hypothetical. So say you need half a kg of butter. When you look for butter in this list, and I'm just going to quickly search for butter, it's right here. You have the option to specify in this line item over here, if you put in 0.5, and then from this dropdown, you can pick from one of 15 different units of measurement. We've accounted for both, or we've included both weight-based units of measurement as well as volume-based units of measurement. So your weight-based units will be the ones up here, up to stones, if you happen to use that. And then your volume-based measurements are from milliliters all the way to gallons. Now, using that hypothetical example, if your recipe always asks for half a kg of butter, what you can do is just put in the 0.5, and the change from the previous version of the tool is where now you can specify the unit of measurement, which is kgs, and that will automatically update the number of grams that you are using in your recipe. The calculator will take into account what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring everything down to a single unit to make it easier to calculate what the total cost is for that unit. But how you do that is now you have that additional flexibility to specify the unit that you use. So if you keep an eye on this cell over here, where it's got 500, if I say, I want to use half a fluid ounce of butter for the recipe. Again, stick with me as a hypothetical. If I click on that, it will automatically update the total number of grams that relates to that particular unit of measurement. So you would see it went from 500 because we had selected kilograms down to 14.79 because we've selected fluid ounces, right? And you can choose any of these measures. So if I go to pints, it will change accordingly. And say I make this 1, right? So 1 pint is equal to 473 grams. If I make it a cup, then it's 236. So if your recipe asks for, like say, a quarter cup of butter, you could just put that in over there. The calculator does all of it, all of the calculations for you, does all of the conversions for you to get you to this number, right? Now, this is assuming you have default values. Say the value for your ingredient changes and you don't want to specify a default value. Our recommendation is to then keep all of the values in column H at 1, right? So just change it to 1. And what that does is it will give you the flexibility in the first tab to then go in and put in the quantity that you use for that ingredient for that specific recipe, right? And I'll show you how that works as I walk you all through entering a recipe into the tool itself. One final point that I wanted to show you all, one final part of the sheet that I'd like to show you all is, if you're curious to know about how we're arriving at these conversions, like what are these unit conversions from grams to each of these other units of measurement, we do have the table located at the right-hand side of this sheet. So all of these formulas are pulling from this list that you see over here. Have all of the units of conversion, right? So if you want to see what's under the hood, so to speak. So now if I bring you back to the first tab, sorry, actually, before I go into entering the recipe, maybe I could take a pause to see if there are any questions about the food inventory tab itself. All right. I see Anushka nodding her head, so I will go straight into the recipe then, right? So now, for the recipe, we've tried to make this as simple as possible to enter. We understand you have a lot on your plate, pardon the pun. So we're trying to make this as easy as possible, right? So to do that, now the functionality stays the same. This is an autofill functionality. So as you start typing in the name of the ingredient, if it has been entered into the food inventory tab, it will start populating. So now if I go back to my recipe, where we're going to put in the ingredients for Quails on Toast by Ed Zemensky, and we'll just start by entering in the ingredients as they're listed on this page over here. So the first ingredient here is button mushrooms. So I just typed in the word button. This was the only option that is returned back because that's the ingredient in the list over here, in the food inventory list. And when I take a look at the recipe itself, it says it needs 200 grams of this ingredient. So under the amount column, I just put in 200, and that will bring in the calculated value for mushrooms. Now, this is where I want to point out why using 1 gram is useful. This is where you get that flexibility where, this particular recipe asks for 200 grams, but you have another recipe that asks for just 50 grams of button mushrooms. By narrowing it down, or rather by specifying that it should be 1 gram, you then have the flexibility on this tab to then enter the quantity that you want to use for that specific recipe. Again, just taking you back to what I was showing you all earlier. Say in the case of button mushrooms, your recipes will always ask for 50 grams of button mushrooms. Then you just have to come back here to this food inventory tab and enter in the 50. That will then become your default value for this ingredient, so that when I come back to this tab, what you will see over here is when I re-enter button mushrooms, this list over here, you'll see the label has been updated from 1 gram to 50 grams. And so does your cost. Because now when you're using 200 portions, 50 grams for each portion of button mushrooms, that's going to cost you $43, about $44 to actually use, right? So I'm just going to come back here and reset it. And then come back here again. And re-enter button mushrooms, and it gets us back to the value that we had if we were to use a gram, right? Now I'll walk you all through the rest of the ingredients. So the next on the list is shallots. So I will start with shallots over here. Again, I've got 1 gram specified for the default value. It's 50 grams that's used in this recipe over here. Then garlic, right? And what you'll see is I don't need to reach for my mouse at all. This is all operated through the keyboard alone, where you just have to type it in, the values will show up. So that way, you're not losing any time trying to go reach for another piece of equipment. So with garlic, the recipe is asking for 10 grams of garlic. So you put this in over here. So thyme is next. And here, what I've done is I've tried to put in 2 variations of thyme. So you can pick between dried thyme, fresh thyme. You have full flexibility in trying to specify multiple variations of the same ingredient as well. So the thyme in this case is 2 grams. Then I've got coloratura. Now, something to call out over here, based on the name of the ingredient that you specify, you can specify variations within the same name of the ingredient to make it easier for you to pull it up. So some chefs may refer to this ingredient as coloratura. Other chefs may refer to it as fish sauce, depending on what you would like. You could either, if you put in both names, you can search in any way that you want, and it will return that value back for you. So in this case, it's coloratura, and it asks for 10 grams of coloratura over here. And then white wine, next up on the list, it's 30 grams. Now, the recipe in this case, measures wine in grams. You can always change it to fluid ounces and then adjust your input accordingly. Something else to call, just to call out as a refresher again, as you add additional ingredients, you will see that the values, once they are populated over here, have an associated color, and that color keeps changing, right? So now, if you take a look at this, after white wine, the next ingredient is butter, so 30 grams of butter. I'm going to enter the butter over here. So I've got 30 grams of butter. Notice how it's set to green at this point. When I hit enter after entering 30 grams of butter, that value changes. The rationale, or rather the design behind this particular column, the total cost column here, is to highlight what is the relative cost of each ingredient in comparison with the other ingredients in your recipe, to quickly highlight what are your cheapest ingredients in green to your most expensive ingredients highlighted here in red, right? So this will tell you, if you would like to optimize your recipe, this is a way to try and identify which is the ingredient you would want to typically try and optimize for. So now in this case, button mushrooms, you've got 200 grams in your recipe over here. If you feel the cost is too high, if you change it to 150, does that make a difference? No, it's still your most expensive ingredient. Potentially, in that case, it's diminishing returns, trying to adjust down this particular ingredient. You're better off keeping it exactly as is. Now, if I take water, so water is also on the list, and I wanted to show you an example of that, right? What you may notice is that when you put in an ingredient, it suddenly changes the entire formatting, the color coding of your ingredients list over here. This is also a good way to go back and cross-check to see if the quantities have been entered incorrectly. Something that stands out over here is, surprisingly, in this recipe for quails on toast, the most expensive ingredient is water. That can't be true. And that's when, when you see this highlighted over here, you know that, hey, there's something that I need to investigate. You see that 40 portions of 40 fluid ounces were included as a part of this recipe, when actually you need just, maybe like half a fluid ounce, which then makes it your cheapest ingredient, or even 1 fluid ounce, which keeps it as your cheapest ingredient in this list, right? And then so on and so forth. So you can keep adding all of these ingredients over here. So now prunes, If I add prunes to this list, it was 50 grams, I believe, or was it 75? 75 grams of prunes. So that makes the, so that will include the ingredient there. 40 grams of red wine. Yeah, so red wine is 40 grams, and then your sherry vinegar is again 20 grams, right? And then we get to the water, and so on and so forth. So as you add all of these ingredients over here, the food costs will update automatically to show you what is your total amount that you are then spending on food costs related to this particular recipe. So that was a quick demo of the changes, how the unit conversion has been built into the food inventory tab, and how you can specify default amounts if you want, or leave it at a recommended 1 gram or 1 of every unit of measurement, so that you could then specify what your preferred units of measurement are on the first tab where the calculator lives. Right. And with that, I will stop for any questions.
If you have questions, definitely feel free to drop them in the chat, or you could just speak out now that we have a small group today. So I'm happy to help in any way if you have any questions on the tool. And then Matthew, just as a reminder on the food inventory tab, you
Yes.
but we showed people in the past, but just as a reminder how easy it is to put any ingredients in that aren't listed. Maybe if you can go through that really quickly, that would be great too.
Yes. Yeah, sounds good. So all the tabs, all the columns in yellow, that is where you would put in values. So let's take chocolate chip cookies, like chocolate chips, right? So now if I want to put in chocolate chips, again, you can, depending on how your restaurant organizes its ingredients, you could pick from any of these groupings, or yeah, you could, or you could leave this column blank as well. So this is one of those optional columns. It's more of a way to help when you want to sort through your ingredients list to see what you have in a particular grouping. So now in this case, I'm going to put chocolate chip cookies under bakery. So I just start typing it out. It's in baking. My apologies, not bakery, baking. So again, all of these are meant to, like, wherever you see these little drop downs, they're all autofill columns. So as you start typing, you should get a matching value. Then you move over to column C, enter the name of the ingredient as you have it. I have it further up the list, but as an example, so I put in chocolate chips, enter the wholesale price. I'm going to assume it costs $5 per pound, and you order about 3 pounds of chocolate chips. Once you put in this information, it will automatically convert the amount you've purchased into grams. This helps with calculating the total cost. You can then specify how much you use. Again, this is the whole default setting. So say you use 20 grams, or actually I'm going to choose a different unit. So I'm going to say I use 0.75 kgs of chocolate chips in the recipe. And that loosely translates to 1 serving of chocolate chips, right? That's it. That's all you would have to do to enter this particular ingredient. Once all of this is set in, all of the columns, the formulas in all of the columns in white will then take over. They will do the calculation for you to tell you that this is how much it costs to use this much, like 750 grams or like 0.75 kgs of chocolate chips as a default value in your recipe. Once it's been entered in over here, to check and see if it's been entered correctly, look to see if there are any warning signs. Now, say for example, I put in something like dry goods, right? You will see this warning that shows up saying that it's not a part of this list. So that's typically where you'd want to go back and correct that particular value, because it can affect the formulas that power the rest of the calculations. So now in this case, dry goods is not a part of this list. You would go back and choose from the list of ingredients. You can either type, or you could click on the dropdown to get the full list, depending on what you're more comfortable with. And then once you finished adding the ingredient to your food inventory tab, to check and see that it's been entered in correctly, what you want to do is go back to the first tab, come to the first step, and then add the ingredient that you just added. So in this case, it was chocolate chips. There are 2 entries for chocolate chips in the food inventory tab today. So one is what we just entered, the 0.75 kgs, or the 1 gram option. If I pick this one, and then I specify 1 serving, or like one quantity of it, that should then show you what that total cost was for that particular ingredient, which, like in this case, it's 8.2309. When you come back to the food inventory tab and come all the way to the end, it is 8.2309. So the ingredient has been entered in correctly, and it is showing as you would want it to show when you do your food costing.
Perfect. Thank you. Does anyone from the group have any questions on what you just saw? Or have you, I know you're obviously going to get the link at some point. So maybe our next office hours, we have 2 more coming up. If you stumble upon anything, just write in the WhatsApp group or shoot us a message and we can help you troubleshoot as well.